Hey there, and welcome to the first episode of Should You Buy. This series will be more of an impressions type of video, more so than a full-on review, and today, we're talking about the Rogue Prince of Persia. This game is being developed by Evil Empire, the studio behind the very successful game Dead Cells that released back in 2018, and is being published by Ubisoft. Shout out to Ubisoft for providing me a review copy. All footage you'll be seeing was captured on PC at 60 FPS. Now, if you're thinking, didn't Ubisoft already release a Prince of Persia game earlier this year? Yes. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown was another 2D action-adventure Metroidvania platformer. I did a full no damage run of that game, so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link in the description. Now, Rogue is very different from The Lost Crown, in that Rogue is more similar to something like Hades. The gameplay loop is very similar in that you'll progress through procedurally generated levels set in various biomes. Every couple of levels, you'll encounter a boss. You'll have the opportunity to gather gold, which can be used to buy items from merchants and upgrade weapons at blacksmiths. These vendors can be found in each level as you progress. You'll also find spirit glimmers that can be traded for weapons and items back at the Oasis. Now, if you die, you'll lose everything you acquired, and you'll be transported back to the Oasis, which serves as a safe hub and is the place where you can buy new items for subsequent runs. During runs, you'll find dungeons which can contain platforming challenges or puzzles that once completed will reward you with loot in the form of new or upgraded weapons, health, gold, abilities, etc. There are also fast travel points called Well of Dreams that allow you to go back to certain areas in a level to explore different paths, or, if you run into a dead end, allow you to go back without having to platform and fight your way through enemies again. Now, combat in Rogue is pretty straightforward, but does have some depth and a lot of player expression potential. You have your standard dodge for avoiding enemy attacks, a kick that acts as a stun and a pushback to keep enemies off of you, and a slam attack that you can perform if you're high enough off the ground. At the time of writing, there are 8 different main weapons, each with their own unique playstyle and specific light and heavy attacks. From dual daggers to swords, axes, spears, and claws, alongside your main weapon, there are also tools. From a typical bow to a chakram, you can throw, grappling hook, and other special abilities. These are all discoverable throughout a run and can be traded for upgrades or other main weapons and tools. Now, some weapons can be used to stun enemies, and others can give you buffs such as damage increased on each attack. After the first time you die, and you're sent back to the Oasis, you'll be introduced to medallions. Medallions are trinkets that can be equipped to gain abilities or skills and can be combined in unique ways to capitalize on specific playstyles or approaches. Currently, there are fire, resin, poison, throwing knives, health, and heal medallions available to you in various forms. Now, you may find a resin medallion for your kick, for example, that will produce resin in a path around the target when they're kicked. Resin is essentially a slime or a goo that slows enemies caught in its path. Now, furthermore, combining with a fire or a poison medallion, you can, for example, set that resin on fire or create a poison resin path by synergizing these various medallions. On top of all that, most medallions can be upgraded through levels, and each medallion is capable of upgrading medallions around it to increase certain stats or give you access to special abilities and playstyles. There are many possibilities with this system, and medallions are all randomly generated, so learning the strengths of certain combinations will make your runs easier. Now, the bread and butter of any Prince of Persia game, though, is the platforming and parkour, and I'm happy to say they really nailed it here. The spectacle in Rogue is the wall running, man. The wall running and platforming really shines here, especially when you're doing some of the platforming dungeons. Not only is wall running practical for platforming, but it is a must during combat encounters, especially during boss fights. Every boss fight in the game has some mechanic that requires you to use wall running and platforming to avoid their damage. Now, I do want to shout out the art direction and the music in Rogue. While the art style might not be for everyone, I think they did a really great job of creating something that looks unique while maintaining that Dead Cells art style that so many of their fans already enjoy. The music is always present in the game and changes with each level, and none of it ever left me feeling super annoyed or tired of listening to it and wanting to turn it off. Now on to some of what I dislike about the game. Keep in mind, similar to their previous game release, Rogue is being released in early access, so the developer has been transparent in that this game is not a finished product yet. However, you'll be asked to pay $20 US to access this game when it launches, and there are some things I would want to be aware of if I were you. The biggest issue for me personally is that there is no save feature in the game. I have a 5-year-old at home, and during my time playing, I had to leave suddenly, or I had to go do other things where I didn't want to just leave the game paused and running. Closing the game, or even just going back to the main menu, means all progress you've made is instantly lost, which is kind of a bummer. At the time of writing, a run can be completed fairly quickly, in about 15 to 25 minutes depending on your skill and RNG. But man, finding a new weapon and getting certain things that you want to take back to the Oasis and unlock just to have all of that time and effort deleted simply because you need to close the game feels terrible. Building off that point, crashes are very common, at least for me. Now, I have a very high-end PC system, and every run I did just about, I experienced a crash. Now, since you can't save, and all progress is lost when the game closes, that feels horrible. When you're in the middle of a great run, and you're further along than you've ever been in any previous run, and then the game crashes on you. I know it's an early access title, but man, it feels like the game's just giving you the middle finger. Also, hitboxes and dodging can be a bit iffy sometimes on some enemy types, but that's more of a minor annoyance if anything. Anyways, should you buy this game? For me, this really comes down to the asking price. When it enters early access, they're asking for $20 US. At launch, you'll have access to 6 levels, 8 main weapons, 6 tools, 2 boss encounters, 30 trinkets, and 13 dungeons. Now, I think if you're a fan of Dead Cells or the roguelite genre in general, then there is something here for you that you'll likely enjoy. If my experience ends up being the common experience, it really boils down to, are you okay with the game potentially crashing every run and losing all of your progression? And do you want to buy into that experience? If the developers are able to resolve the crashing issue, or just implement a save system where your progression is saved, for example, let's say at the start of a level, then I think the game is worth the $20 asking price. But now I want to hear from you and your thoughts on the game. Are you a roguelike fan who's picking this up? Are you a Prince of Persia fan who just wants to wall run and parkour around enemies in a new experience? Let me know anything you want about the Rogue Prince of Persia down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video or learned something, clicking the like button is the best way to show your support. If you're new around here, consider subscribing for more high-level, professional, no-damage runs, reviews, and opinions. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.